Normally, I wouldn't waste my time commenting on such a minor matter, but having come across this issue, I thought to address it. Asheville, North Carolina, police arrested a young man by the name of Devin Whitmire, and the body cam footage was released. And, or I should say, there was footage from a person having videotaped the entire incident. So we have a pretty good idea of what happened. Mr. Whitmire is leaning up against a car, and he's being told by an officer that he has an outstanding warrant and that they're going to place him under arrest. And his response to that was, well, can you please, this is a paraphrase, back up so I can take my gun off me? So one of the officers says, where's the gun? And he says, don't worry about it. And the officers then, of course, rush him, push him to the ground and handcuff. During the whole time, he spits on them. And then at the end, even after being handcuffed, he kicks and spits at the officers. Of all the people complaining about the arrest, it's interesting that Miss Smith, a person of color on the city council of Asheville, is the only one who seemed to say that the officers acted correctly and that Mr. Whitmire was terrorizing the neighborhood. And is basically my addition here is glad that he's off the street. So now he's in jail, and his supporters are trying to raise $8,500 for bond, which, I mean, that shows you that, well, I guess he doesn't have much support in the neighborhood, because if he had as much support as some people claim, they would have been able to put that up in 2 seconds. But anyway, let's get back to the issue at hand. A lot of the criticism says that officers didn't take time to de-escalate the situation. Well, I'm curious as to what de-escalation should have been employed here. Because the man said he has a gun. And then when the officer asked him, where's the gun? Well, he just blows it off and says, don't worry about it, boss. Additionally, at the prior to that point in the encounter, Mr. Whitmire had been informed that he had had an open warrant and that he was being placed under arrest. At that point, he should have realized the jig was up and he wasn't going anywhere. And instead, what he did was he tells the officers to back up so he can get his gun off him. I guess he thought he was a cowboy in some Western, where he's going to unstrap his gun belt and hand it over to the marshal of the city. First of all, that's sort of like the oldest trick in the book. You get some people who are threatening you to back away, or you perceive as threatening you, so you can bolt. And that is exactly what Mr. Whitmire was going to do. Mr. Whitmire had no intention of submitting to an arrest. And the fact that he had open warrants for his arrest shows you that he's been probably doing his best to avoid an encounter with the police. And this was a way for him to try and escape. The distance between him and the officers was fairly small. If he had had a little bit more room, he might have tried to run away. He might have been able to run away, but it's doubtful. So instead, Mr. Whitmire, of course, tells them he has a gun, which, why wouldn't you tell an officer you have a gun when you don't? And then when the officer asks, where is the gun? You say, well, don't worry about it. Well, of course. So let's put out a little table and have a little coffee and cake, and let's bring your fiance over here, and let's all get to know each other. And then maybe we can discuss the possibility of you submitting to arrest for an open warrant. In this case, anybody who watches at least the video that was recorded by the fiance, I don't understand how much more gentle an arrest can be, particularly when the individual refuses to be arrested, basically, or he's trying to refuse to be arrested. He's got a fake broken arm, which seemed to work fine during his attempting to fight back with the officers. And then, of course, after being cuffed, he kicks and spits the officers, even though he was spitting at them while they were trying to arrest them. I just don't understand what all the upset is about. The judge said the matter was not handled correctly by the police or Mr. Whitmire. Well, I don't understand really what that even means, but nevertheless, he kept Mr. Whitmire in jail can't be bailed out until he gets this money. So he didn't release him on his own recognizance, if you will. So I think, harken back to the statements of Ms. Smith, the board member, that she's the person of color who's board member, who says the officers acted appropriately, and that this young gentleman was terrorizing people in that neighborhood, no doubt. And so now he's in jail. And so lesson, when you are trying to escape from the police, I don't think it's a good idea to tell the police, who are literally 2 and 3 feet away from you, that you have a gun and that you'd like them to back up so you can get your gun off you. I mean, I'm not the OK Corral. Is that what he thought he was going to do? Of course, he didn't have a gun. And how should the officers know he didn't have a gun? Merely because his fiancée screamed in the background, he doesn't have a gun. Oh, well, of course, sure. Third party that just tell you the truth all the time. This kid needs to grow up. And, well, he's basically ruined his life. Tough luck.